All right, I am back from the Wrecker Games, and the weather here is a lot colder than it was in southern Utah. I miss the sunshine, although we did get some crazy monsoon rain too. Uh, Wearing my industrial injection hat, got that from the guys at Industrial Injection this weekend, and we reached out to them. I reached out to them, and they got us the pin for the diesel injection pump on the Ultimate IH service truck. So you guys are going to see that in an upcoming video. New fuel pin, and we're going to change the turbo and the manifold and a couple other parts on there that we got from Industrial Injection, and that'll be an upcoming video for you guys. But today's video, the purpose of it is we are going to talk about the IH Ultimate service truck that we took to the Wrecker Games that you guys all saw there. By the way, I was overwhelmed with the amount of people that knew about the truck, knew about me, knew about the company, knew about what we were doing and the story of the truck. I can't thank you guys enough for coming up and talking to me and taking pictures of it and asking questions, and super thankful. Like, that was very humbling and very cool, and it was very fun for me. So all right, so today's video, we're going to talk about the Ultimate service truck. We're going to talk about what we got when we got it, what was wrong with it, what we fixed on it, and what some of our future stuff is that we want to do going forward to it that's in addition to the things that we already fixed. So Kevin's here. He's in the shop right now. He's working on replacing the rear fair lead. The bolts on the fair lead, we just threw them on last minute and put the rear winch on. The bolts got full of sand down at Sand Hollow, and they're stainless, and that locked up the bolts, so he literally had to end up taking a torch and cutting them off, and we're putting on the new Yankum Ropes fair lead, the Freedom fair lead on the back, Groove fair lead. I can't remember what it's called. I'll show you guys. Okay, so I'm just going to start at the front because I think that's the easiest. So in the front, the very first thing when we got it, the hood latch was holding the hood down, but there was no hood release. And as you can see, when they built this and they put the Cummins in, they sealed all this stuff up to make brackets for the intercooler and the fans and the radiator and stuff, which is all well and good. But if you look at this hood latch, you will see that the hood latch, in order to come out, unbolts, has to go down and out. It's the stock hood latch. There was no way to release it, and when I asked the seller how they did it, they said, well, we just use a snap-on pick tool to open the hood. I'm like, I'm not doing that every time I open the hood. That's silly. So we took that all out. Kevin had to pull this entire front out because the grill, the headlights, the valance, the intercooler, everything had to come out to fix this one problem. So we just used a stock latch, and on the earlier style 69 to 70s, the hood latch has a release right here like that, as opposed to a rod that goes all the way down to pull on. Now, albeit I'm guessing that the reason they didn't finish the hood latch is they couldn't figure out how to make the rod come down and pull on there. What they didn't know is a stock hood latch from a truck 2 years older goes right in there. Kevin made a little modification to this bar here just so that it would actually release easy, and now the hood opens no problem. So we did that, had to put all the front back together. We replaced it with these headlights that have the LED marker in them and the blinker high and low. These marker lights here were in, but they were non-functional. And the reason they were non-functional is the wiring was dead-ended all the way from the top to the bottom. So the wiring was connected to the marker light and connected here. There was no blinker, no running light, no nothing. So we sandblasted these housings, repainted them all, cleaned up all the grounds, redid all the guts on the inside, and then rewired it all. So when we were done with that, we bolted on the front bumper, which I knew it didn't have a front bumper. There was no mystery there. That wasn't weird. So we put on the front bumper, reached out to our friends at Harbor Freight, and they sent us a couple winches. So we got a Apex Badlands front and rear winch. It's got the Yankum Ropes Groove fair lead on the front and the Yankum Ropes synthetic line on there. And you guys will see more of that in an upcoming video. Baja Designs lights, buck stop front bumper. And then up underneath here, this is the wiring for the winches. So there's a front and rear winch, and this is a power switch that turns both winches on or off. Most of the hose clamps in here for the intake and intercooler were all bad, so we replaced all those. There was no air filter on the turbo, so you've got the nice little JDM Asian looking one there. That's all we could find at the time. We're going to build a piece of piping that goes back and stick the air filter back up there eventually. That's on the list of to-dos. The heater hoses were all kinked and pinched, so the heater in the truck didn't work. So we replaced all those heater hoses. The serpentine belt tensioner right here, it was froze. It was not doing anything, and therefore the serpentine belt was just chewing itself to death and eating itself alive. So new serpentine belt, new tensioner, new fan pulley hub, that had to be replaced. All the injector, these injectors right here, all those injector O-rings were pinched and flattened. So somebody had been in there and changed them, but when they put them in, they installed them incorrectly. So all those injectors were leaking fuel. So we replaced all those lines. There was no dipstick. So now there's a dipstick. There was no dipstick, so we had an oil leak coming out the dipstick tube right here, so we had to fix that. The power steering pump down here, which you guys can see that. I don't have my light. It's right there. The power steering pump was bad. The high pressure line was missing and was told it was bad. So we were told that the high pressure line was the only problem. We just needed to replace that. So we replaced that. The pump was bad. So then all the lines came off and we replaced the pump. We got the pump and the high pressure line on. The steering box is bad. So we went to the event with a bad steering box. It still steers, just not very power wise. Like if you're going down the road it worked fine, but if you're in a parking lot it was very difficult. So today Kevin's out on one of our parts trucks right now. We're going to get a used box out of one of the ones we have, test it, bench test it, and put that in, replace it, and that'll fix a lot of the power steering. We were told the brake booster is bad. It was. We replaced that. The master was pushing fluid through as well, so we got another one of those. The proportioning valve for the rear brakes, I believe, is incorrect because it sends way too much power no matter how much you adjust the rear brakes. So there's two different styles of proportioning valves. One is for with rear drum, one is for rear discs, and one of those has a backflow valve in it that doesn't allow pressure to come back and overpower the front. So I think this is the wrong one. I think it's whatever one it's supposed to be, it's the opposite. So we're going to change that. Power steering return line, we had to change that. And basically the wiring from the firewall forward for all the lights and everything up front is all new because all that stuff was screwed up as well. So I think that does it for the front end, sheet metal wise, I think. Yeah. Okay. Okay, under here it's a little tricky. So these tie rod ends here were cracked and bent. This tie rod all the way across was bent. The front leaf springs right here, you see there's the caster wedge. This allows the front axle to pivot up correctly. Those were missing. These U-bolts were not tight. These bolts right here, this nut on the end was only 2 threads into the bolt. There was no more bolt here. So these would have fallen out if you went over any little bump at all. So we had to replace all of those. We put in the wedges to adjust the caster, both tie rods and the tie rod end on the front side. Now, the steering box is what Kevin's doing right now. That was already bad, but we didn't know that till after we used it for a while. So, and it looks like right now, if I'm seeing it right, looks like the front main seal is leaking too. So I guess we'll be replacing that. And as far as the front axle goes, the brakes were good. Oh, no they weren't. The bleeder screw for both these calipers on the front was reefed down with a pair of vice grips, so the bleeders leak on both front calipers. Instead of using a wrench, somebody used a pair of vice grips, so those are bad. So we had to replace both of those as well. Okay, so here's where we get into the major changes here. So originally this had an NV 4500 transmission, and it was a 4-wheel drive transmission. It was mated to a 241 transfer case with 2 little yokes welded together 180 degrees out of phase to an intermediate shaft to a 205 transfer case that used to be back, well, you can see the bolt. It was back here, way too far. So what that was going to give was a front drive line that would have been 88 inches long, a rear drive line that would have been like 30 inches long, and 2 little intermediate shaft stub yokes that were going to vibrate and fall apart. Now, when we took the stub shaft apart, both U-joints were seized in there, so they would have come apart after just a couple miles. So we pulled the transmission, and in order to change it to a 2-wheel drive output, you have to rebuild the whole transmission and put a new main shaft in, which was good we did, because when we took it apart, the 5th gear nut, if any of you know anything about NV 4500s, they're supposed to go on with thread lock. They have set screws and packing so that the 5th gear nut doesn't come back off and take out the rest of the drive. That nut inside this rebuilt transmission was hand tight. You could literally spin it with one finger. So this transmission would have been junk after just a few miles. So we redid that. We had to rebuild a new entire cross member because none of that worked. We took off the rock sliders because, well, let's face it, those didn't work either. Kevin built a new shift linkage and bracket here for the 205 case, which this 205 case is now in the stock location where it originally was for the Internationals. Kevin had to build this plate here for the shifting so that all of the 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, high and low all worked properly. Our friends at Driveline Tech built us all new drive lines, front to rear. You can see those. We put in all new yokes all the way back and a new rear drive line. Shane at Custom Exhaust Specialties in Bend built us an entire new exhaust system because when we got the truck, there was a pipe that came out of the turbo and a little piece that went down. It was aimed directly at the suspension bushings on the front leaf spring, and that was the only exhaust. No muffler, no tailpipe, nothing. Was not told that till afterwards. That was an expensive thing to fix. So now it has all new exhaust, all new drive lines. Kevin put in the factory 205 brackets from International, sandblasted, painted all those, all new bolts, all new hardware, all new mounting flanges. That whole thing got redone. Then I moved back to the rear axle. Brian at Driveline Tech, that's upside down, I know. On the rear axle. So the rear axle had spring perches here that were tack welded on and were not the right size and did not fit the axle housing. It had the stock ones still on it, which were over here, which are now these. So we removed the stock ones, we removed the janky ones, we threw those in the garbage. Kevin cleaned all this up, re-welded these, reset the pinion angle, and put all this stuff back together. Now, these were so flared out here, about this far, like that these are now bent, and the top plates are wallered out up here. So, those top plates are getting replaced, these are getting replaced, and a bunch of other stuff. The brakes on the rear axle were fine. The rear pinion seal here is leaking very bad, and the pinion seal is leaking because the pinion bearing is bad on the inside. I was told this axle was completely gone through and brand new, but that bearing, you can literally move the pinion up and down and in and out. The bearing's so bad, which means the seal got taken out because this is moving all the time. So that will have to get changed as well. The rear e-brake cables were just laying on the frame in here, so we disconnected those for now. It does not currently have an e-brake. However, it will, so we will change the e-brake cables and put a off-road designs kit on up there that will go up to the factory pedal. Other future plans are, you can see the floor patchwork on this truck was questionable at best. So all of that, I believe what we're going to do, Kevin's words to me were, find a floor that's better than this one and we'll take the whole floor out. So I think next winter, not now, but next winter, we're going to just put an entire floor pan in this thing. And I'm sure I'm forgetting more stuff. So let's see here. Oh. Oh. All right. The tires and wheels are 37, 12, 50, 17s, which are great, but when you locate the axle and everything else, you can see it's not centered. So these tires really are bigger than what should be on this truck. This is bent because of this. The other side we flared out just to make it work for the trip, but we are going to actually change wheels and tires and fix both of these fenders. There's exhaust from Shane. A custom exhaust, you see right there. Now, the rear bumper, the seller did build that. They did a good job on that. However, we had to modify everything to make the winch fair lead work and the winch and everything else and then all that fun stuff. So I don't need to talk about that. The trailer hitch plug was here. However, there was no wiring. We did the backup lights. We fixed these lights. We fixed the bracket for this. Let's see here, let me grab my underfloor. Just gotta lay on the ground here because we're not using the hoist currently. Kevin's putting the power steering box in, so. All right, underneath here. Ugh. Okay, so you guys can see all these brake lines were just, I don't even want to say, they were horrible. The pinion angle back here was horrible. These leaf springs were loose. These U-bolts were flared out. Those brackets were in the wrong spot. It was bad. So we mounted the apex winch on the back here as well. We face mounted it to the bumper like this. Trimmed the lever so you can still actuate the engage, disengage right there if you see that. And then we wired the auxiliary box over to there. That's the control box, but these have a wireless remote, so it works out fine. Okay, so I'm inside now, and let's see, the sun visors were not in, no rear view mirror, which I didn't have time to do that. The dash was not in, the gauges were here, none of them worked. We actually put in an oil and water temp gauge there to be for sure we knew what was going on. The alternator gauge works now, fuel gauge works now, the heater now works, the wipers now work, the blinkers now work. There's your winch remotes right there. That's our reverse lights, and see that comes on. That's the fog lights, that comes on. Down here we installed a USB port and voltage monitor. So there's USBs underneath there, and you can just turn that on and off. That tells you if that's working. We also put in trailer brake controller so we can pull a trailer with this. Now, the carpet was here, albeit not really installed. It was kind of in. The trans tunnel was, it was junk. They cut a huge gaping hole in it, and you could literally just put your fist down through there. Plus the transmission shifter here and the transfer case shared the same hole, so there was no way to put the boots on, there was no way to keep the air and the exhaust out or anything like that. The seat belts, I did find them, but they were in the toolbox on that side, and that toolbox was full of ATF and power steering hydraulic fluid. So these seat belts were soaked in hydraulic fluid, power steering fluid, all rusty and gross. So I did my patented little, I say patented, it's not patented at all. I'll show you guys in a video in the future, but oh, I just noticed you can see my sunburn from Sand Hollow. That's nice. Nice little red raccoon eyes. That's great. Okay, so I use Comet and soap and water, hot water, and I actually soak these when I fix them. So I'll do a video on that because it's a really cool interior thing, and it'll work on any old car. It's not just international. So you can use it on any car that's been sitting a long time and make these all soft and supple again, and you can fix the buckles and the clasps and clean up all the rust and everything and make them all good. So in the back, same thing. We had to replace all those. There was no armrest on any of the doors. The two front ones had two pieces of aluminum, so thankfully I got parts trucks. We fixed all the armrest. I fixed all the window cranks. We fixed all the door latches. Oh, and then on each door, they had the early door sill, which didn't cover up anything, so we replaced the door sills with the correct ones. Had to drill and tap all these holes because someone put all the holes up 2 inches in the wrong spot, and I don't even know why. Well, actually I do know why, because they patched the floor and they never drilled the holes. But so we fixed all that. These door seals, it had none, so those are all replaced. It was just basically metal on metal. We did find what was left of the door seals in the toolbox, but they were junk, so those are all new. See, I'm going to do all these here. Carpet, brackets, everything, all the seat belts. We did pull the rear bolt on these so you can actually get behind the back seat. I don't know if people realize you can do that. We fixed the dome light. So now there's no door pin on this old truck, but the dome light works. It's pretty cool. I like it when the little stuff works. Okay, so if you can't tell, we did everything. Oh, one more thing on the engine. We had to take both the motor mounts and lift the engine up and move the engine up a little bit and then tilt the back down a little bit because the front motor mount was so low on the passenger side that let's see if you guys can see it. Yeah, right there. This coolant line into the main jacket, this was resting on the frame rail right there. So there was no space for this, and as soon as the engine starts up and vibrates like that, this would have broke and cracked and we would have had coolant either overheated or just had a huge mess everywhere. So we fixed the motor mounts to make sure that wasn't going to hit either. So as you guys are seeing, we took the whole truck apart, and we did it in 13 days. It was 211 hours, 2 guys, myself and Kevin, running all over the place to get this thing back together. So needless to say, it was not what we planned on, but we promised you guys we would be at the event and we were going to do everything we could to get it done. Okay, so with that, in conclusion, I want to thank everybody who helped us. Now, when I say helped, we're not talking about people giving us free stuff. We paid for literally everything on this truck. But what I want to say is all these people that helped us, what they did that was amazing was we reached out and said, hey, we're trying to get this thing done for this event that we're going to, that we promised all these people that we would be at, and we just need your help. So we called Nate at Elite Fleet, and Gavin got us in. In 12 hours we dropped off a transmission, we got all the parts. We got my friend Tim from Jagged S Customs. He had the tail housing and the yoke, so we got that from him to convert it to 2-wheel drive. We overnighted parts from Portland, and they didn't charge us for the overnight, but we bought the parts. We got them here the next day, took them to Elite Fleet. Gavin rebuilt it in 12 hours and gave it right back to us so we can put it back in the truck. Brian from Driveline Tech, once we got everything sorted out on the truck, we sent him all the measurements in Hurricane, Utah, drivelinetech.com, and he built all the drive lines there. So when we got to Hurricane, we were able to unload the truck off the trailer, take it right to his shop, and he was able to mock up everything, finish welding and painting, put in the yokes, and we had all brand new drive lines. Again, it wasn't that he did it for free, because he didn't, but he was willing to drop what he was doing, fit us in his schedule, so we could get the truck done. Just amazing. Shane at Custom Exhaust Specialties in Bend, Oregon, called Shane, told him everything that was going on, had huge sympathy for us, and I said, hey, look, man, we got to get this, and this all done before we can bring it to you for exhaust, because exhaust is going to go around all the stuff that we're making. So, I mean, can you fit us in towards the end of the week right before we leave? Hate to be a burden, you know, whatever. Said, nope, no problem. You tell me what day, I will move my schedule, I will get it in, and we'll get it in and out in one day. Again, we weren't asking for anything for free, and we by certainly did not ask for free. We paid regular price for all that stuff. But what he did was he moved his schedule to get us in so that we could get the truck done on time. That is what amazing people we have in this community of automotive that I'm just so thankful for. So we got the exhaust done. Then on the final day, we were still waiting for a title for this truck. So the seller finally got us the title, and in the state of Oregon, when you have a title from out of state, you have to get a VIN inspection. Well, with COVID and everything else that happened in this world, there's only one DMV that's open on Mondays, which is the day we had, that does VIN inspections without a appointment. And unfortunately, they are 1 hour in the opposite direction we need to go. So Monday, the day before we were leaving, I had to load this on the trailer because it doesn't drive, take it to Prineville, which is an hour away, get the VIN inspected, get the title transferred, get the plates, get the insurance and everything else, then drive all the way to Bend, another hour, take it to Elite Fleet. They put it right on their alignment machine, did four-wheel alignment, fixed the toe, the caster, and everything else on that, which you'll see on another video of Casey's. Then bring it back home. Then Kevin and I had to do the punch list, and we stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning on Monday, and we left at 6 on Tuesday morning. So we brought it back, and then we had to do everything else that was left. Basically, as a recap, here's everything that we did front to back. All right. Like my cinematic changes here. Helps keep the audience engaged. Change angle from here to here to here. Okay, that air noise, that's Kevin. He's doing the power steering pump right now. Okay, so total recap. Trying to thank everybody, trying to list everything we did. Basically what happened was we rolled the truck in the shop, day one, put it on the lift, pulled the front axle out, pulled the rear axle out, pulled the transmission out, pulled both transfer cases, all the drive lines, all the cross members, and the rock sliders, which are no more. So we had a frame, a cab, a box, and an engine. And then we had to put it all back together. And most of it was all new parts, all new cross members, new drive lines. You guys, I'm not going to bore you, list it all again, because you guys know. So we basically rebuilt this truck in entirety in 13 days. So it was a struggle, and it was absolutely 110% worth it. I met so many of you guys that were so nice and so genuine and so amazing and so grateful for us bringing it and being able to see it. And that made it all worth it. And now all the little things that are left, like the power steering box, the e-brake cables, changing out the wheels and tires. Oh, the wheel and tire change. So we are going to put factory steel wheels on, factory dog dish hubcaps like we always do, and we're going to go from a 37-inch tire down to a 35, and we're going to do a 35/11, so it'll be a narrow 35 on a 16-inch factory steel wheel. So that'll be cool. That'll be in an upcoming video. You guys made it clear at the event that this truck is part of our channel and part of what we're doing, and it's not for sale because we have to continue on and prove and show everything about this truck and go out and do all the Will It Run videos that we are planning on doing and going and helping people like we talked about. So again, I can't thank everybody enough that helped us. Shane, Custom Exhaust, Brian, Driveline Tech, Nate and his crew at Elite Fleet, Dave and everybody at Napa Auto Parts, Dave and his crew at Northwest Wheel and Tire, Tim at Jagged S Customs, Harbor Freight, Baja Designs, Buckstop Bumpers, our wiring guy in Redmond, Hagermeister, who made all of our custom wiring and leads for our winches and our lights and stuff, and we needed harnesses, and he dropped what he's doing and made us a whole bunch of new leads and wires. And so those guys are great up there in Redmond. And I'm sure I'm forgetting more, but holy cow, it was so many people. And I'm just excited to bring you guys more videos and more content with this truck doing the Will It Run videos. So stay tuned for that. We are going to post another video up about anybody that has old Internationals and trucks and stuff and tractors or whatever at their ranch that they may not want to sell them, but they'd like to get them running again. We would love to hear from you guys. We're going to take this truck and fill it with parts and tools and fluids and filters and jacks and all that kind of stuff. And we'd like to come out to your place, help you get that truck running and driving again, at least to make it around the farm. And we'll film it for a video, and we'll work with you guys to get that thing back on the road. So look for that in a couple of upcoming videos. I've talked long enough. I tried to change the camera angles enough so that you guys didn't get totally bored, but I'm sure you are. If you're still sticking around, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming out to see us at the Matt's Off-Road Recovery Wrecker Games. Oh yeah, big shout out to Merlin's Old School Garage, and Dustin at Industrial Injection. We got a fuel pin from Industrial Injection for this truck, and then Merlin gave me a link for the turbo and the manifold and all stuff like that. And hopefully on an upcoming video, Merlin and I are going to, on FaceTime, we're going to do the pin install in the diesel injection pump here from Industrial Injection, do the turbo and the manifold install, and then we'll see what kind of power this truck will make, because that's exactly what parts are missing from this engine that is in Towmater, which is Merlin's tow truck that has the same motor as this one. So stay tuned for that. And again, thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.